Hello everybody, this is Loci of WayOfLoci and welcome to the No Hit Podcast. Here it is my job to interview extraordinary gamers in the realms of challenge running, whether that be no hit runs, completing games in their entirety without taking a single hit or point of damage, speedruns, completing games that would normally take hours and mere minutes, and other such ventures. Today's guest is HeyBlasty, that's HeyBlasty, HeyBlasty on Twitch and YouTube, and XBlastyX on Twitter. Blasty is the epitome of a variety no-hit runner, having completed in just 2021 33 games no hits, not including ones he's done previously. Just in 2021, 33 different titles, including variety from survival horror in the Resident Evil series, other AAA games such as Sekiro, the Dark Souls series, indie games such as Celeste, Titan Souls, and many others, and a huge number of games in between, with a few others being Remnants from the Ashes, Mega Man Battle Network, and Mortal Shell. In this conversation, we go through a few of these runs, including the year-long battle Blasty had with Celeste, breaking down the segments in how Blasty approaches a new no-hit run, runs that ended up being more difficult or easier than initially thought, and some that were potentially impossible, and many other topics. I hope you enjoyed this conversation with HeyBlasty. Right, Blasty, thanks so much for coming on the podcast. Appreciate taking the time out for this. How's it going, man?
All good, man. Thank you so much for having me here, dude. I've been looking forward to this a lot. It's like not every day you get to pretty much geek out of Hitless with a fellow runner in a podcast. So this is great for me.
You have a lot of experience and we're going to be going into quite a bit of it. But
Yeah.
before we go into any of that, we're going to go right to the start. So you've done close to 40 no-hit runs, but what was it right at the start? What was the first introduction to hitless running?
Okay, so when I started, my first introduction to Hitless was pretty much Dark Souls 2. It was that's a lot of backstory or background story to this, but basically I was streaming Dark Souls 2. And a fellow viewer just came in and he was a pretty big fan of the game, and he started talking about, about the game and about this sort of like niche that was in and people were like doing it. And so when he told me about Hitless, I kind of ring the bell because the first time I saw about that was Willa. But back then, this was like, damn, this is why like maybe when Squilla started, I don't really know because I don't remember the year, but I used to play Smite back then and was a very competitive player. And I would watch like random videos of Squilla popping up on my feed, and I would just go, "Oh, this is just a random unicorn that's just godlike at the game," and then I would just completely dismiss it. And then, little did I know about that it was actually a thing. So when this guy came in, he started talking to me about Oats Darva and Hob, that they were doing the God run and the all bosses plus DLC. And as time passes, I grew a bit more interested in it, and I was like, "Yo, send me the link. Let me check them out." And then that's when I saw both of them got the run in the same day, and I was like crazy. And I kind of got motivated. I started thinking about it the day after that, and then I started streaming again Dark Souls 1 because I was casually playing it. And I said to him that it was cool and everything, and he kind of challenged me to, it's like, I bet you can't do it. And I was like, you know what? I'm gonna try to do this. I'm gonna, you know what? I'll challenge accepted. I'll go for it. And so that's how it all started from there.
And how was your experience learning that very first one?
It was, I don't even know. I had no expectations. I was pretty okay with like not getting it because I never thought that I was gonna. I never thought that I was gonna like make it, like do the run. So I was just in for the adventure, to be honest. And when I started doing it, I had no idea of how to properly do it. I had like a couple. I was watching runs, but I didn't have a guide. I didn't know anything about the community. I was completely like away from like this niche. I just knew that Hob, Startup and Squilla did it, and that was about it. So I started like working it on my own, and so the what I thought was like, okay, this is too much for me. So let me just do the first half, and when I feel confident, I'll do the second half. I don't know, man. Naturally everything just clicked. I just started like looking for, like, I already had the answers for all the like the strats and everything, but like the process of just getting consistent at it was kind of natural. And then funny enough, the moment I got past Rotten, because he was like the biggest wall that I had, I got the run. I got the run. And the thing is, here's the funny thing is that I knew that I had a really, really bad win ratio against Throne Watchers. Like my win to losses was like 1 to 10. So I was like, there's no way getting past Throne Watchers. And out of nowhere I did, and I was like, I don't know, it was kind of surreal. I was like, damn, am I actually doing this? And I could see chat going like, wait, is Blasty actually doing this? And then I killed Nashandra, and then I don't know, I popped off. One of the very very few times that I popped off.
So I'd be interested to know.
Yeah, that's
I'd be interested to know how has your approach changed. So from that first experience to the present day or recent, how has your approach to learning a no hit run developed?
oh, dude, my approach to learning has gone wow miles, I would say, dude. So here's the thing. So I've been doing this for 3 years, right? And so the first year, I wouldn't say like the first year was as productive at the as the other the next 2 years. I think the next two like the last 2 years where I started like really realizing my position as a runner and my potential, and I started to get pretty serious because like the first year was basically just I'm enjoying it. I'm enjoying it. When I did the Dark Souls 2, I was like, oh man, how many other runs? Like if I can do Dark Souls 2, which is like Dark Souls are hard games, what other games can I not hit? And I was like, oh shit, okay, let me try Resident Evil 2. So there was that. So basically there's a lot I've learned from every game. And so one thing that I made sure to do, at least for the last 2 years, was like learn something from every game that I no hit. So I always ask myself, like, okay, what was the one thing that if I would have done correctly or I would have changed, would have significantly shortened the time it took me to get a run? And I would take note of that, and then I would apply it to the next game, right? And so that's like every single game that I know hit it kind of make me better at routing and strategizing and creating consistency. So that's why I say it's like, dude, like I think I've grown pretty, like I gotten way better at doing it. Like Dark Souls 2 took me, I think, was 3 months. I bet you I can get that run in probably like a month now with the experience that I have now, or probably less. So yeah, there's a lot. I think my approach to just Hitless is like everything has an order. There's a hierarchy. Like this importance of what I should do first and what I should not do. So it's grown tremendously.
I've got two questions from that. The first one I'll ask is, could you provide an example of something you've from an example of a game that you've no hit and what you took from that game that then applied to another no hit run you then went to do?
Oh, so there's I got a couple examples, but two really good examples is what I took away from Celeste and what I took away from Hollow Knight. So when I was doing Hollow Knight, and this is something that I came up like halfway through, I think it was, that I kind of realized, and I was like, this is something that I should definitely do more often. Is basically like whenever I do a run, I would make a montage of all my hits. So yeah, so I started with a separate channel that is called Blasty. Hey, Blasty got hit, and in that channel there's a montage of all the hits that I took from Hollow Knight, and every night I would just watch those hits and I would try to like memorize them. So it basically would work as a sort of like predicting the future in a way, but it's like learning, like knowing exactly how you got hit, so you know not how not to do it. So like if I were to go to like to a certain path, I'll be like, oh, this is how I got hit. So like I'll know that I should avoid taking those certain actions. So from Celeste was a bit of a pain, and probably the most emotional run, the most emotional that I've ever been in a run. What I learned from Celeste was I had problems remembering stuff, or sometimes I just space out and I just do things like the wrong way. And Celeste is like there's a lot of precision in terms of input for consistency. So one of the things that I had trouble with was there was places where I had to like dash diagonally like upright, and I will always miss it. And then I would go like, chat, remember me, dash upright, dash upright. And so one thing that I did like really, really, really late into the game that I kind of regret was that I will open a notebook or notepad, and I will write all my inputs or like all the actions that I should take. Like if it's like a very specific game like Celeste, then I would do that so I remember. And that helped me tremendously at the end. I was like, because Celeste was a crazy run, and I thought that I was gonna stay there for a long time because I was already at 1 PB for quite some time. And then when I started doing the notes, that helped me a lot. So I took that, and I can't apply it to every single game because there's a lot of stuff like goes into details when I want to be specific about getting consistency. But for definitely for platformers was something that I should approach more.
Celeste is an interesting case because it's one of very few that has essentially no RNG to it. It's all about inputs, and that's what affects it. There's pretty much next to nothing. Even something like Battling, if you do the same series of positions, she'll attack in the same way. So that's why I found the run very interesting.
Yeah, I really enjoy Celeste a lot. Celeste, honestly. So here's the funny thing. Okay, so I didn't meant to do Celeste. I didn't meant to do Celeste, but back then, okay. So let me see how I can explain this. I'm a very competitive player, right? I'm a very competitive player, but I always been pretty bad at everything against my peers. Like I've probably been the worst of all my peers, and anybody that I meet, I'm probably one of the worst players. Except for maybe like first person shooters from time to time. And the Hit one was like the first moment that I realized that I was pretty good at, and I kind of wanted to like expand on that. And so there was a point where I started like looking at other runners, not because I wanted to like see how much better I was or how worse I was, more just an idea of like where I am and what I need to do to improve and be a better as a player. So like looking at other runners, it kind of gives me an idea of like what aspects of myself should I improve. So at that time, I was looking at Clamcast because I noticed that he got Sekiro. Apparently, he got it in like 15 days, and I was like, "Damn, Sekiro in 15 days? That's wild! God damn, this guy is crazy." So I started looking at his at his portfolio, I would say, and I would see like every month he will get a run. And I was like, damn, this guy's definitely something. And so I started watching him, and then there was an event from Team Whiters where he assisted, and they were talking about Celeste. There's very little people or nobody in the Hitless community that has done it, and that he wanted to see one. He was interested in seeing one. I was like, you know what? I'm gonna do Celeste. I'm just gonna go and do Celeste, and like that's the only reason I just went for Celeste because Clankas was like, yeah, I haven't seen one. I think that would be dope to watch one. But the little that I knew, there was somebody already did it. I think like one or two persons already did it, two people, and then so I just I still went with it because I the thing is like Celeste is probably the I have a bit of like history with Celeste. I wouldn't say that I was a speedrunner, but I attempted to speedrun the game way back then when it came out in 2018, and I had decent amount of hours into it, so I kind of learned, or I already had an idea of like some of the text and movement of the game, so it kind of felt like a good idea to touch on the game again.
So you found that like the PVE as opposed to the PvP aspect was your forte kind of thing. That was where.
Yeah, yeah, I think because the I'm always fascinated about what the enemy has to offer against me, but there was another layer on top of just gameplay in PvP, which is you got to be able to read your opponent, right? So there's another difficulty ceiling on top of the one that is gameplay, right? So you got to like master the game, and then once you master the game, you got to be able to like read opponents and know what the opponent's doing. So that was like the part of that I really just couldn't do well. I wasn't able to read my opponents well, and it took a lot of like a bit of struggle. So yeah, PvE was like I always been a fan of PvE, especially since I really like shooters where it's just me versus other AIs. I always loved that. So it kind of felt natural to just get into Headless and then just do PvE games instead of PvP.
And with the montage of hits, that's essentially like improving your recognition kind of skill, isn't it? So as you're approaching a certain section, because you've rewatched these hits over and over, you are able to recognize earlier or perhaps already have it in mind as you're approaching the area that this is what you've got to avoid or got to keep in mind as you do in this section or boss or insert other.
Yeah, yeah. So basically, it works as a way of like reliving hits. So I always remember how not to do them because the thing is like some players might be really good at remembering all their hits and just learning from them. I have an issue with like really remembering stuff. I only remember the stuff that I want to, not the stuff that I don't want to. So I think in a way it's kind of normal for everybody. But like hits, unless it was like a really strong hit, like something that it really impacted me, I probably wouldn't remember as much. So I started doing montages, and the thing I liked about it was I could watch the montage and I go like, oh yeah, don't do this because this is gonna happen, and then it happens. And it's like when you're watching a series and you just go like, oh no, it happened again, but you already know what's gonna happen kind of thing. It's like, oh, you shouldn't have done that, but you already knew what's going to happen. I just kind of wanted to like have that sort of like thought process, and or not thought process, but sort of like approach where I could just see the montage over and over, and I can just predict what's going to happen, even though I already saw it, not which I'm not predicting. But that kind of like will put me in a position where when I play the game, all these hits are just going through my brain. It's like, oh, you got hit here, 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 and it's like, okay, so this path is not the one you're supposed to go, right? Don't go left, don't go center, just go right, or don't go below, or just don't approach, let them approach you. It's like I could like relive all the hits in an instant and kind of like help me shape the path that I should go for like having consistency and avoiding hits. So that helped me a lot.
You said earlier about the Dark Souls 2 that it previously took 3 months, but if you approached it now, it would take 1 month. What would the sort of step-by-step approach would you take if you decided Dark Souls 2 was the next one to do? What would be like day one, going into the game, going into finally getting the run?
Okay, so I mean, but what we're talking about, like, if I didn't know anything about Dark Souls 2. Okay, so if I basically will start by watching a speed run.
Mm-hmm.
First I'll do the first playthrough, right? I'll play the game first, and then you know what? Let's say there's actually no speed run because I've done games where like you just came fresh out of the pack and there's no speed run at all. The way I would do is I would like go through the game and then I'll casually play it and then I'll play it again, but this time trying to beat it as fast as possible. So that way I'll take the most amount of shortcuts or the least amount of like I would like I won't deviate as much and I'll try to like min max as I'm doing it. And from there, from my first playthrough, I'll probably do save files for each and every boss and route, so I can get an idea of like, so I can practice later, and then the first run is just to get an idea of how I would do things. And from there, I think I'll just basically like, I think I'll do another run. I think I'll do another run just to like polish it a little bit more, and then from there I'll just start thinking, okay, these are all the sections that I could potentially do well, and these are the sections that I could potentially do wrong. Like with the experience that I have right now, I'm kind of able to like tell where most like a lot of hits could happen. So it's easier for me to like make less mistakes nowadays. I think starters I will look for the right weapon that has like above average damage of above average speed. Sort of like twin blades, rapier, those kind of things. And then from there I'll just, you know, work on the routes first, boss later, because the bosses are the one thing that it's a 1v1 fight, most of the bosses, so it's all about like memorizing and getting used to the bosses. Routes is like the most uncomfortable part because depending on which game you're playing, there's so much could go wrong and is heavily dependent on, I mean, it's very dependent on the player side input because the game kind of reacts to what you do. So you gotta be aware of like how you're doing things. Even when things are like a lot of RNG, there's a lot of stuff that you can do that kind of manipulates how the game kind of plays around you. So I'll work on routes first and try to see like how the enemies react, how they behave, and if my movement speed is faster than them, can I run them? If it's lower, then can I use a ranged weapon to like clear the enemies? If there's no ranged weapon and I have to like just use melee combat, then how can I isolate them and then just deal with them one by one? Is it too long? Then maybe I could try to find, I don't know, a bigger weapon that I could just have like longer range, like an ultra great sword, and just try to kill two or three at a time. You know, I would just play around with the routes, understand the mechanics and everything, and then pay attention to like all the interactions because that will carry out for the next routes because some of the enemies are somewhat the same in terms of how they behave based on what you do, like fundamentally, like a lot of the humanoid enemies will just stagger off a hit on a great sword. So that's something that I could pay attention, like how much, how fast is I would take in consideration my animation, and then I will try to see like if there's any attack that can beat my animation if I were to do it at the same time as them. And if so, then okay, then let's factor in range. How far can I go and do it? Like, can I attack them from like when they're just about to enter my range of influence? All these kind of stuff I would do, and then start to shape up like, okay, this is what I should do. This is what I should not do. And then once I'm done with that, of course, it's not always done. You still have to like keep routing and perfecting because there's gonna be meme hits. But from there, I'll probably feel a little bit more comfortable and start working on bosses. And I like to work from beginning to end, but I like to put a lot of work on the end boss first or close to first. Because the thing is, like, imagine you're doing so well on a day, and then you kind of get to the last boss only to lose to him. That happened to me on Mega Man, and I was like, okay, I'm gonna practice this boss a lot. And so I learned the boss to the point that I was doing pretty good, but some of the sections before that were a little bit scary. I managed to get past those sections, and then when I did the boss, I was pretty comfortable. Not only was it easier for me to deal with the boss because I had put a lot of hours into them, but also I was not as nervous. And the same thing happened with Cinder because I did the same thing with Cinder. I put a lot of hours in Cinder more than anything else. So yeah, I think that would be my approach. Just two runs. Basically, I'll do save files, and then work on routes, and then work on bosses, and then put a lot of effort on the last two bosses or the last boss.
So by having save states, you're essentially splitting up the game into segments or splits. Is that right?
Yes.
So with those segments, you've made those save states. With certain, my idea is with certain games, there can be like item restrictions, like in Souls games, perhaps with buffs. Do you use those save states to like reset the same split over and over again, or do you during that second playthrough just run through casually, making the save states as you go, while making sure to try and explore everything?
Yeah, I do save states on my second playthrough. I'm also careful about how to like the state of my character. If it's an RPG game, I kind of want to make sure that the stats that I have kind of help me practice. Because let's say for example, if I make a save state on a character that's actually pretty strong, pretty OP, then I could probably like three shot a boss. Then it's okay because you're probably gonna be able to get that build, but then it will not give me the practice that I need if I mess up, right? Because there's just games that you can actually like sort of like stun like a boss or like for example Bloodborne, right? Bloodborne is a game that it's a lot of like execution. So if your execution is good, you'll do good. But if your execution is bad, you have no knowledge of the boss, and you're gonna suffer, right? So I try to be in a position where I still need to work pretty hard to just get the win, just in case, as I say, as a failsafe, just in case things don't go my way. So, like for example, if I were to do Dark Souls, I'll probably have low stats of in terms of damage, so I do very little damage, and I can just practice the bosses over and over. So I would do save states with what I, like the second playthrough. I'll try to make sure that the character is not as strong. So when I do save states, I could do that. But as well, I'll be very careful about how do I set up my character for the routes because that's kind of like the more important part, to be honest. I don't want to be like completely under leveled. I just want to be just right. So yeah, on my second playthrough, I'll probably be looking about what I really want. Like for example, I think Nier Replicant is a really great example of this. I did my first run, I clocked in at on 8 hours, and then I did my second run, and I was already looking about like how can I make it faster. And that's when I found the boar. So I did that, and I was already looking about like which are the best weapons, what items that I play with that kind of like help me have an easier time against fights. And so I made sure to look for those. So when I ever made the safe state, I will have those tools to be able to practice because then it will be a pain to just do safe state again, just to look for the tools, right? So I didn't want to like do a third run just for the sake of tools and then make safe state. So I'll probably be very keen about like what are the tools and stuff that the game has to offer to the player on the first run. And then I'll take mental note of that, and on the second run, I'll try to like look for them so I can then make the save files and have all the stuff. So yeah, I will see. It will kind of be like I'll be prepping per route to make sure that the save state has the necessary things, so I don't have to like do it again.
And that sort of resource management, do you do that all through like self exploration of you yourself like going through the entire game, or do you use any other sort of resources like I guess speed runs or wikis or anything like that, or is it all just making sure to search every avenue of the game? I guess.
It really depends on the game. As the game is fresh, there's really very little resources that I got at my disposal, so I have to do a lot of stuff on my own. But if it's a pretty old game, then I definitely go to community FAQs, speed runs, Discord communities. There's a pretty funny something that I do that I kind of look at in the way I look at it. I kind of look like speedrun communities. I look at them as like villages. So it's like when I'm going to like let's say Celeste, then I'll go to like Celeste's village, and then I go like, okay, like let's see who I can talk to that can kind of point me in the right direction and give me the good stuff. Sonic Adventure 2 was one of those where I just went into the Discord and I was like, hey, I want to do a challenge run on this game. Any tips? And from there I started working. And I think it was thanks to, I mean, not I think I know it was thanks to that community that I was able to get that run in the time frame that I got it, because the one of the last bosses is complete. It's rage inducing how much that boss is unfair. I can't believe that I enjoyed that boss when I was small. But yeah, I would certainly just go to like the communities. I would do a lot of Google search. Like if there's any like FAQs, or not FAQs, but like discussion on Steam, on Reddit, on I'll do a lot of research on that, and from there I'll try to learn as much as I can. If there's not much research, I just play around with the game as I'm doing my first two runs. Honestly, I don't when I play it for the game for the first time, I haven't been able to like really sit down and have that sort of casual experience that usually you used to have. And this goes way back based on like how I was born and stuff, and taught and everything. But I find a lot of satisfaction on just doing a first playthrough, but like always paying attention to everything. So, and not just like going for the sake of super enjoying the game casually. So part of like that, what helps me when there's a game that I don't have much of resources outside of like what I outside of the game. I just I just pay attention to like every detail. I think that one of the things that I've made sure to get from every game is like how the game functions, mechanics, enemy behavior, and all that stuff. And that has helped me tremendously on like finding strats and things about runs. I think Kenna was kind of like that. You know that in Dark Souls, the bosses have like sort of a move pool, right? Just like how Sublime said it in one of the in your podcast. It has a move pool, but in the back, when you're in behind them, they only have like one option. Well, they have two options, which is either like basically like attack from to the back, like there's an animation dedicated to attacking to the back, or just turn around. And there's instances where you can kind of like loop that, or you can play around that if you have the right spacing. The boss has no choice but to like look at you. So in Ken, I did that a lot. I was like, oh, like I learned this from previous games, so let me see if I could do this in Kenna. And so I did it, and I was like, oh, the enemies do not have a way to like deal with the players behind you. So there's things like that. Like I try to like understand how some strats or like manipulations work on other games, because they're like very important tools for transitioning to a newer game. And I think like for like fresh new games, that's the one thing that I rely the most on. Is like understanding how everything is like how hitless is possible, and how some strats are possible in other games, and then learn and trying to think how can I translate it to other games. Whenever I try a new fresh game, then it's like, okay, so this is a third person shooter, or this is the third person RPG. What other games I play that has some similar gameplay or combat style? What can I do now? How can I exploit it? So I'll start with that. I'll start with messing around with the things that I've done in the past to see if it worked. So that's like probably my main way of like strategizing when there's not much at my disposal.
So we've gone through just a variety of different runs that you've done there, from like Celeste to Dark Souls to Mega Man to Sonic. What's a trait of a game or traits of a game that makes it appeal to you to do no hit? Or when you see a game, what does it have that makes you want to do a no hit in that game?
I don't know. I just love doing no hits, dude. I just look at the game and I go like, oh wait, can I hitless this? For example, just chip and beats, and I just like the idea. I think I've always liked the idea of seeing like a gamer just go through a run flawless, and all I think about is like, oh, how would that run? How would that game look like if somebody actually just beat it without getting hit? And just the idea of making that a realization is kind of like what pushes me forward. Honestly, when it comes to like games, I've grown to love a lot of genres in the past few years, and because I used to be just a first person shooter kind of guy, which is like, if I ain't shooting, then the game is trash. And that was what I was, but it all changed back when I decided to just sinking to Fallout for survival, and my perspective of genres kind of changed, and I started being open minded. This was before I started Hitless, so transitioning to Hitless after doing Dark Souls 2, that was my first thought. It was like, oh my god, what other games can I do Hitless? I just realized that there's a such a buffet of games that hasn't been done hitless, and I just want to do them all. So I think that's like my motivation. It's not really like playing a game per se and just out of the enjoyment of the game I kind of want to do it. It's more of just that I just want to do them all. I just want to hit them all. No,
just
hit them all.
Pokemon it, just like catch them.
Yeah, this is just catch them all. It's just catch them all. Put it in my library. Okay, I have all these games that I've done. Which one needs done hitless, and that's kind of like the thing how some people go like, oh Blasty, why do you don't like just doing hitless with other people? It's like some people go like, yo, you wanna do this hitless, or I'm working on this, you wanna jump on it? I go like, nah, no, it's fine, you're already doing it, I'll just work on another one. It's because if it's done before, then I probably wouldn't be that interested, and that's kind of was my sort of like my thought process, like in the first year and a half, or maybe like the first 2 years. My thought process was like, oh, if somebody already did it, let me go for another run that nobody has done it. And I think it was more of like, not because I wanted to catch them all. It was, which is funny. It was more because I really wanted to push the envelope of the niche. The niche is so small compared to other niches, and I was like, like people need to know more about no hit runs, and so what I thought was like, okay, if I do no hits on other games that have never been done, maybe my runs will get to people that never thought these things could be possible. And so maybe, like they'll get curious about, okay, what's no hit, and then they search on it. So like expanding, like the more runs, the more titles I get to, the way I see it is like the more people I might get to get curious about the niche. So for me it was like, okay, you did that run, okay, I'll work on this other one. Right, I'll just work on this one that hasn't been done yet, and that was like for the first 2 years. Now I just I still kind of like do that, but I'm more conscious about how people like be part of something, and if somebody's doing a run and they kind of want me to chime in, I might do so. Or if I usually I just announce what game I'm going to do hitless, and then people just jump into the bandwagon from time to time. It was the same with Kenna, I think, and the same was with, I think it was Resident Evil 7. I remember, I think it was I don't quote me on this. I think when I started Resident Evil 7, Jeff was going to start as well or something like that. I don't remember much. And there was also Death's Door, which I knew somebody was doing it, but I already announced that I was gonna do it. So I was like, oh well, I guess, man, but I really want to do this game. So I ended up doing it regardless. I was like thinking about not doing it, but it was really fun to just trade, meet new people, because that's how I met Soul Rot. So it was a fun experience. So after Death's Door, I was like, oh, you know what, maybe this is not that bad, because I can meet new people, and we can trade stuff. It's like it's not just a me thing anymore. I have somebody else who could look for resources as well. So now I'm not this kind of runner who goes like, oh yeah, you're doing it, I'm not gonna do it. It's more of like, I prefer to do runs that people are not done yet, but I'm okay with just being part of this and just trying to like learn the run together.
Yeah, Solrot's I know from his very good Titan Souls guide, which he used when I was going for that run.
Oh yeah, dude, ever since he did that guide, that game exploded. It's very entry level game, and it's so good because it's like you either die in one hit or they die in one hit. So casually it feels like it feels like a hard run casually, but it's very execution heavy. So like if your execution is good, you'll do good, except for the first boss. The first boss is a pain in the
Oh,
ass.
Slime Heart
Um,
or Sludge Heart or whatever it's called.
yeah. When I first played the game, I wanted to get a feel for like how a head will look like. So I was paying attention like how everything was working, and mechanics and everything. And the first thing I said, I don't think you can go back into the vault and see it because it's pretty old now. But the first thing I said was like, okay, this is probably gonna be the hardest boss. And they were like, yes, this is the hardest boss. Okay. So yeah, I lost a couple runs to that first boss, but every single time I got past him, I got pretty far into the game.
Speaking of Titan Souls is a very short game, whether you do any percent or bosses. It's a very short run from a hitless perspective, because it essentially turns into a speed run, because it's just you have to do everything in one hit. But you've also done like the Replicant, which was, I believe, about 6.5 hours, the final run. Do you have an appeal towards a certain length of game? Because I know some other short ones you've done, like Super Mario Bros. Or Contra, are all quite short and sort of, I guess, high, like.
I would say the shorter the better. This shit. Well, kinda. I think a really good spot for me is 45 minutes. 45 minutes to like 1 hour and 50 minutes is where I like to be. I do not know, dude, how I end up getting into these long runs. I just really don't know. Like I wish I didn't have to do long runs. Like there's a couple runs that I've done this year that are pretty long, and I have nothing against it. It's just that the longer the run, the less attempts I can do in a day, and the more there is to look on. And so here's the thing about me and Hitless. I wouldn't say it's a love hate relationship because there's very little hate to like Hitless at all. But the one thing about me is like I always been fascinated with picking up a game and routing it in a way that I could achieve Hitless. I would say like maybe 9 times out of 10. And like routing a run. It's like a puzzle. It's like, oh, this how do I fix this? How do I do this in a way that anybody can pick it up and just do it hitless? So that aspect of hitless is something that I enjoy a lot. The part that I always kind of feel like I kind of don't want to do at times is just doing the run. Sometimes I just really want to move on because to me, like once I figure everything out, there's no more surprises. There's no more. The excitement goes a little bit low. All that is left is just to prove that I am right. After that, I still do runs because I enjoy them and honestly, I just hate not finishing stuff. So I still do the hitless. But I find it I enjoy a lot the writing part of it. So when I'm doing a short run, the routing the time it takes to route is just enough for me to just feel satisfied and then move on to the next run. So if I'm doing a 45, then the games are quick. And it also helps me with the idea of like, well, I just don't want to get stuck on a run for like more than a month because that's the other thing. It's like I wish I'd be the player that I could just not get stuck on a run more than a month. So I've been working on that, and because I know that after a month I just get tired. That actually has shortened a lot more though. Now I get tired of a run after like 2 weeks, which is kind of sad because it's like there's runs that take a long time. But I just like short runs because it doesn't take me too long to finish. Like I could just be done with a run like 2 weeks to a month, and then I could just move on to the next one. Because I'm like halfway through, or after like I'm riding like 80% of the run, my brain is already thinking of like, oh man, how would it be cool if I did I don't know, Crimson Clover or Shovel Knight no hit? It's like I kind of want to get into that game already. Like I want to just try it out so bad. So I recognize that there's a point where I just stop losing interest in the run that I'm doing. So I kind of want to make it sure that's not too lengthy.
It makes me interested then how the the Near Replicant or back to back Near Replicant Resident Evil Village happened because that's a 6.5 hour to a 4 hour run. So I was just interested in how that
Yes.
came to be then.
So I have a thing where I mean, I'm still pretty new to Hitless, but it started last year, where I tried to try hard a game or two, but I usually try to try hard one because I kind of get tired of try harding at times. But this year I was like, okay, Nier Replicant is coming out, and I did Nier Automata and I enjoyed the heck out of Nier Automata. And I was like, I am going to try hard this game. And so usually what try hard means is get the run as fast as possible since release. It's like how fast can I get it before once it came out release. So my goal with Replicant was 14 days. I was like, I'm gonna try to get this run in 14 days. And I think that was honestly like sometimes I say 14 days, but it's like it's really wild to just say that. The thing is like when I started Replicant and I started doing the first playthrough, as I went through the game, I was realizing how bad I was, how much deep shit I was because I was like, oh no, dude, this is a long run, no
Mistakes were
way.
made.
So yeah, and so I mean, I had no cam, so people could not see my face, but I was worried. I was thinking like, how the hell am I gonna get this run in 14 days? And then the funny thing was I was okay if I didn't got it in 14 days, because I like to put myself. I like to get goals that it's not that I could probably get it. Is goals that how do I say this? So in the competitive aspect, I don't compare myself to people. I compare myself to my ideal self, right? So when I'm tryharding, what I'm thinking is like, okay, the best version of me how much it will take him to get this run. And so I'll go like, okay, hey Blasty, the best version of me will just take, it will easily get it in 14 days. And that's something that I just said myself, but it's not something that I fully think like, oh, I can really get that. So anyways, I got into it, and I was like, oh damn, I don't even know how I'm going to do this. And like I said, the run ended up in 8 hours. Oh yeah. Ugh, my brain is like going everywhere. So here's the thing. So before Replicant came out, so this is what I wanted to say. Before the Replicant came out, Resident Evil 8 was announced that it was coming. I don't know what day was it, but it was basically after the 14-day period that I gave myself from Replicant. So no longer it was of like, okay, if I don't get it in 14 days, it's fine. I can just keep grinding it. But I'm pretty sure that after 14 days, I'll probably be very close to getting the run. It was more of like, if I don't get this run in 14 days, I'm gonna have to just take the L and move on to Resident Evil 8. So I had that pressure on me to just really get the run. So when I started Replicant, that's when I realized that it was just a big mountain to climb. I really didn't thought that I could do it, to be honest. But yeah, I pushed through. I actually try hard a lot. Every single day I was thinking I would go to sleep and I dream about the run, to be honest. Which is funny because I think I was talking to my dad once about something and he was telling me, son, the day you start dreaming about something is the day you start getting proficient at it. And so that never left my like that always sticks to me. So whenever I'm dreaming about something, if I was dreaming about Replicant, I'm like, okay. I'm actually in this game like really deep. So let's give it my all. So I grinded every day, like a lot of hours into it. And the beginning was okay. There was a lot of running, and the running was the part that I hated the most. And when I found out that I could just jump on a board, it made things a lot easier and way faster. And then from there was a couple weapons that appear, and I was thinking of like, should I go short, like medium range and just use that, or should I go heavy? And then I learned how the enemy kind of like reacts to the weapons, and I was like, okay, then I'll just go like the starting weapon, because usually this is something that I know about development, is that usually developers like to sort of design the game around the starting weapon, right? The initial weapon. Remnant was just like that. Like the rifle was the weapon that they designed all the weapons around. So the starting weapon tends to be pretty good because it's pretty balanced for casual. But when you apply it to Hitless, it's actually a little bit stronger than it should be. So it's like, okay, I'll just use the starting weapon, and it worked well. It worked pretty well, and so I didn't have to like search for all the weapons, and that made my job a little bit easier. It was like one less thing to search for, because I was pretty comfy with that. And then from there, I started to like understand how the abilities work. There were moments that I couldn't even figure out some sections, and I play around with so many stuff. There was no speed run at the time, so I couldn't even search for it. I did try searching older speedruns to see if I can get some sort of an idea, but no dice. I had to keep working on my own, which kind of sucked. But I mean, and now it feels good, the fact that that I still got it in 14 days. So yeah, figure out the abilities and started working on every boss, and I found a couple cheeses, which was pretty funny. So yeah, and then the one thing that kind of like helped me a ton was just the hit montages. Right, every single run I will do a hit montage. I have like 4 unlisted videos, or I think it was 5 unlisted videos of my runs. I think I did like 5 attempts, and I think I got the run in the 6th attempt or something like that. And every single hit, I would just look at it and I'll go like, okay, and I'll try to look for like more potential hits so I can avoid them. Because the thing about like getting runs fast is like, it's not about how much mileage you get out of a hit. It's about also like understanding like where the potential hits can come from. So you got to be really good at predicting how hits are going to happen based on like what you do, and how the environment is working around you. So I was paying so much attention to like, okay, I can get hit here, I can get hit over there. Because one of the things that I hated about myself in the past was that I would see the hits that could happen, but I'll be lazy enough to like not do anything about it. And then the hit happens like 3 PB, and I'll just be sad because I didn't listen to myself. So one thing that I make sure was to listen to myself every time. So it's like, I see a potential hit here, let's fix it. Let's not wait for the hit to happen. So like montages and being able to predict hits helped me a lot. And I think the highlight of that run was basically the last 2 runs because I was at a 6 PB and the last 2 runs was 8 and 9. Normally, you have like 2 days. I think it was like 2 days left, 2 to 3 days left. You kind of don't want to go for full runs. I mean, I like the thought process will be like, I need to do as many runs as I can to see if one of them is actually like the golden ticket. But I was like, no, let me try to get as much experience as I get. So this one run that I just gamble it on, I could just have like enough experience to like not get hit. Because at the end of the day, when you see a run that you've done and you look all the hits, let's say you did Celeste and you got like 200 hits total out of all the attempts you did. If you were to go to the past and just give all those hits to the past you probably would be able to shave off maybe like 3/4 of all those hits on the past you, significantly reducing the amount of time it takes you to get a run. So my thought process was that it's like, let's not reset. Let's do as many runs as I can. And I can only manage to do 2 runs because I think I got the run on Friday. So Thursday I had to work, so I couldn't put time onto it as much as I wanted to. So I did runs prior to that, and I got an 8-hit run and a 9-hit run. And I was like all 4 hits. I was like, please give me all the hits that I could that's gonna happen. Like all of them. Give it to me all. And then I started looking at every single hit. So I did montage of them and then I downloaded them to my phone. And then when I was working, no, I downloaded to YouTube. And as I was working, I would just leave the playlist on looping of all the hits just so I can see them over and over and over and over. And from there, I went for that last run and I was I don't even. To this day I really can't explain how well the whole process, because it's kind of surreal. It's like that I got a 6.5 run in 14 days, with the last 2 runs being high hits. So yeah, I think I went a little bit away from what you asked, but yeah, I'm sorry, but yeah, that's basically it. That was Replicant. I guess I didn't mention Resident Evil 4. So coming into Resident Evil 4,
Village, sorry.
Oh,
because it was the.
I'm sorry.
Yeah,
Village.
no worries.
Yeah, my bad. I'm sorry. It's just I've been playing a lot of Resident Evil 4. So coming into Village, it was a bit more comfy because it was a 4.5 hour run, 4.5 hour run around that time frame, and I was like, oh, this is better. It's
Compared
Resident Evil is known to be, yeah, it was so comfy, dude, because it was 2 hours less. I was chilling. The Resident Evil games tend to be a little bit more slow paced compared to other runs. So there were a couple of things that I knew that I had that I had an advantage. For number one, I had a pretty good or an average hitless average, I would say, understanding about how Resident Evil works. Thanks to watching Carsey's commentating over his runs, because there's a lot of useful information there that he kind of talks about how the AI works and everything. So like a lot of the information that I got from Resident Evil 2 and 3 sort of like translated to Resident Evil 4 in terms of like how the AI works and everything. So that was one advantage that I had. And the other advantage that I had was that I was pretty good at FPS and PvE. For some reason PvP I suck at it, but PvE I was pretty good at that. So I was pretty comfortable about that. And so the Resident Evil games tend to be a little bit more linear. So I wasn't worried about whether I get the right path or not. It was not about like finding the right path. It was more about understanding like what are the difficult parts of the game, and giving all the tools that I get, where should I allocate all those tools on, right? So I have a thing where I call ref flags, and that's basically of like the ref flag is basically a section that is pretty hard to do compared to like the other sections. So it's like difficulties above average. So when doing like the first few runs, I would identify the red flags and I'll try to allocate my important tools that I have at my disposal in terms of like defensive tools to those. And in the case of Resident Evil Village, it will be just like guns and like where I use the guns, and like I kind of want to min max and not just farm everything. So there'll be moments that there's certain types of bullets that are like important for me. So and then using like the Magnum and understanding where I should use it. So all of that helped me a lot. Flashes were like super important to know where I should use them. So when I understood like how the AI kind of reacts to the flashes, how the enemy reacts to the flashes, then I started like allocating them in the important spots together with the Magnum. And Resident Evil Village was a lot easier than Replicant, because I already had a good amount of experience in the franchise. So it took me less. But I also had I also said I was gonna get Resident Evil in 14 days maximum, but I really wanted to beat my previous sort of record of Resident Evil 3 because I got Resident Evil 3 in 10 days. So I was like, I want to beat 10 days. And I was super close in getting it, but I failed. And so we got it in the 10th day. The only difference is that Village, since routing, took me 8 days. And then Resident Evil 3, since routing, took me 7 days. So I put 1 day extra in casual playthrough than Resident Evil Village.
One thing I just want to mention before going on to the next point is when you talked about trying to increase the scope of no-hit runs, and the comparison that came to my mind was speed running, because speed running, pretty much any game, there is going to be, at some level, someone who has speed run or a community, no matter how big or small, that have tried speed running a particular game, as opposed to a niche like Hitless, which there are selective ones that are done often. Like the biggest example is of course the Soul series, which is like one of the most popular games of it. But there isn't a huge breadth. Like not every game someone is going to do Hitless. So that's just a comparison that goes to mind. That you're like introducing that concept into Hitless that's already exists in speedrunning. Yeah, it was just a random thought that went through my mind as you were explaining.
Oh yeah. Yeah, I honestly I love going to like runs that I've never done before and just meeting new people and then going like, oh wait, that's impossible. And I'm like, no, it's doable. And then they kind of see the process of it and they go like, oh, that's great. Very rarely somebody gets like interested in doing so. But I think in Mega Man, there was a guy that was watching me do the run and he was like, oh, I kinda feel motivated to just try this run. So I'll check it out. So I don't know where it stands right now, but last time I spoke to him, he was really interested in just getting into Mega Man No Damage. Because honestly, like there was nobody has done Mega Man No Damage, like the Battle Network series. And I know speedrunners can definitely do it because they're like really good at the game, but none of them actually got like interested. And my goal when I did Mega Man was to maybe motivate them to do so. I failed in the process, but at least I met some new friends, so it was really fun. I think catalyst for that run was Arathor, and my goal was to like try to motivate him to do the run, but he, at the end of the day, he was not really interested in No Damage. He was just a speedrunner.
Has there been any impossible runs you've come across?
Let me think. Well, there's been many runs that I decided not to touch for the time being. I wouldn't say completely impossible, except for well, it's really hard to tell because I really don't consider games like to this point impossible. But I would say a game that you can for sure like if you see it, you probably go like, yeah, this is not doable. It would be Ninja Gaiden Black actually, which is funny because that game actually got or not funny, but the game was done No Damage
Is that
recently,
the one with
a couple
the
days ago.
final boss? The tricky final boss, or is that a different one?
No, I'm talking about that. So I'm talking about you're probably talking about the platformer one.
Yeah, I think so.
No, I'm talking about the third person one, the one that came from
yeah,
on
yeah, I
Xbox.
can remember. Yeah.
Yeah. So that game, I remember when I talked to the guy who was also doing speedruns and challenges and stuff. He said it was impossible, and I was like, oh sure. And so I checked the run, and honestly, it is insane if anybody pulls that hit list because the thing is the game it revolves around blocking. It's made by Team Ninja. Team Ninja is known for doing not like having pretty hard games, but more importantly, having pretty hard enemies to deal with because the tells in those games are a little bit they're not as good as Dark Souls. And Team Ninja likes to do like when they design their enemies, there is tells, but man, they're quick. I wouldn't say like Code Vein level quick, but they're quick. So when you're trying to do hitless on Ninja Gaiden Black, you basically cannot block, which is like your best tool because sometimes will come out of nowhere and you have to like just block and go for a counter. So imagine just not being able to block. It's like things are just gonna happen so quick and you're just gonna get hit pretty easily. So when he said it was impossible, I was like, oh yeah. And then when I checked it out, I was like, he is probably right. I wouldn't say it's like impossible, but it's really hard to pull off. But recently no damage has been done, so at least that's a step in the right direction. I don't think anybody will probably attempt to do so, but I would like to take a peek at it in the future. It's just that it's only for Xbox. The Steam version, I don't like it. It's actually the PlayStation version. I don't want to touch that one because it has extra chapters. But the Xbox one, I would like to try it out to see like how the AI kind of works because I think maybe there's a couple things that might not have been tested out. So I don't wanna label it impossible, but I would say like Ninja Gaiden Black is probably one of the hardest or probably the one run that is kind of feels like pretty impossible to do. Besides that, there's been other runs that I just like have touched and decided not to, which one of them is Shovel Knight and the other one being Code Vein. I do want to get back into those games. Oh, Super Metroid is another one. The first boss of Super Metroid, like if you ever played Super Metroid, and you play the first boss, you'll notice that's not doable. So I mean, not it's not that it's not doable. It's just it is extremely hard because it was not designed to for you to like maneuver around it. So yeah.
Have there been any games that have proved either surprisingly more difficult or easier than you initially thought going into it?
Oh, that's a really good question. Let me think. Maybe Deltarune. I think I would say like Deltarune because the thing about these games is that I always thought that the Undertale games are pretty tough, and so QSV, which is a really good runner, and I think he's the world's first to do the night run of like neutral, which is pretty insane because Flowey is crazy hard. He said, "Oh yeah, do Deltarune. It shouldn't take you too long." And I'm like, dude, those kind of games are not easy. He's like, no, you'll be fine. You'll be fine. You know, it's like it's a short run. It's like 30 minutes. I'm like, oh, it's a 30-minute run, huh? Hmm. Like I like 30-minute runs. I'm like, okay. Let me try it out. Let me try it out. So when I tried, I was like, man, I don't know what I'm getting into. But then I started playing the game, and I was like, oh, some of the enemy fights are actually not as hard. They're pretty okay. The only intense part was the last boss, and I was getting pretty consistent fights with them. So, I wouldn't say it was like easy, but it was easier than I expected. So that caught me off guard. I was like, oh, I can definitely do this. So I kind of grinded it hard. I was like in the fence whether like I should really go for it. You know, I'm trying to shoot for. I don't know if I was trying to shoot for 20 at that point. Yeah, I think I was trying to shoot for 20, and I wasn't sure if I wanted to invest time on Deltarune because I was completely new to the genre, so I didn't know like what I was getting into. That which is one of the things that can kind of be scary for some people. It's like you're getting to a new genre, you have no idea how the genre works. So it's like starting from scratch. You just have to like get used to it and develop experience, you know? Like most of my experience were like on Souls games and RPGs and Metroidvanias. So coming into a game like Deltarune, I was like, oh, I don't know if I could do this. But then when I played the first game casually, it was like, okay, which is one of the things that I'm pretty happy that I'm able to do. Maybe a lot of people, everybody has this, but it's pretty easy for me to tell, or nowadays it's pretty easy for me to tell like how much is a run gonna take me. So I kind of tend to predict that after a first playthrough. Like for example, Mega Man, when I first played Mega Man fully, because I wanted to do a first playthrough, I ended up and I said, okay, this run's gonna take me 3 months, and it took me 3 months. There's a couple games that said, okay, this is gonna take me 2 weeks, or it's gonna take me a month, and I pretty much nailed the time that it takes me to get the run.
And any that's proved more difficult than you initially thought?
Which one? Delta run?
No, it was so that Deltarune was an example of one that was easier. Was there any that's proved more difficult than you initially thought?
There's been games that I underestimated. I guess that's the right way to say it. Kinda a little bit. Let's see. I'm looking at the games right now. Let's see. Oh, dude, Hotline Miami. Hotline Miami, dude. Oh, that game. Wow. So in the beginning of the year, I had this little thing where I kind of wanted to spice things up, and I decided to let the viewers choose the runs that I wanted to do. I was like, yeah, tell me which run you would like to see, because I think that's something that I really liked about speedruns and the events like HDQ is like people enjoy seeing their game get crushed, and it's kind of like a love letter for them. It's like, oh damn, the game that I love them a lot. It's like I can see now, like from a different perspective, how like it's approached. And I thought maybe people want to have that sort of experience where they just find like they ask me to do their favorite game and just do a hit list. And at that time there was two people who asked me, a close friend of mine, and then one of my moderators said, "Hey, do Hotline Miami." And I was like, "Okay, I'll check it out." And when I played the game, dude, if I thought that getting into Replicant was I got into deep trouble, Hotline Miami was like 3 times that because the enemies can kill you in the first frame. So that's nuts. So when I was watching, because I was watching a speedrun of it, and these guys were going like balls deep, just didn't care. And their excuse was like, if you die, it's okay, because it's just faster to reset the level and attempt it again. Then no, they said if things go wrong, it's okay to reset. Then just attempt to salvage it because it's faster. And I was like, oh no, dude, these guys like do this kind of stuff. And then they were saying like, yo, yeah, you can die in the first frame. Like they can shoot you in the first frame. They can either choose to react on the first frame or react in the frame number 50 or react like 1,000 or none at all. So there was a bit of RNG in terms of like they can choose when to engage in fights with me at any point. So I would peek in so they could see me, and they would just act like they never saw me, and that was frustrating. And so when I started, I thought it was gonna be a little bit easier, and then it was hard. It was hard because not only the fights were brutal, especially in a casual, but I had no source of like strats to go from. Like everybody who's done like sections or segments, they just go fast. There was only one guy who attempted to do Hitless, but he was doing a glitch with glitches, which I have no problem with that. It's totally fine. But the thing is, he was skipping a couple levels. So they found a way where you can just back into the car, and then you will skip the full level and just continue on. So he skipped a couple levels, but I had to like, I was not gonna do that. I had to do it. I had to do all levels because there's, there's no way for me to like skip it like by developer intended. So he went balls to the walls as well. He was like going fast and he didn't care anything at all. Like, it looks like he was certain he was not gonna get hit, though it was not true because you only see the finalized product, you don't see the struggle. So I know for a fact that this guy probably tried it a couple times already. So I was like, okay, then there's no sort of information for me to like be able to like learn from them. So I had to start from the scratch, and that was a run that I underestimated. That I thought that was gonna take me a long time. I did ended up getting it within, I think it was like 17 days. That was a run that was very scared. The more I learn about the game, the better it was though. Like I learned that enemies kind of have some sort of like navigation mesh, but like their navigation mesh was basically like when cutting corners, they had to like get to the corner and then turn around. So that was something that I heavily abused. I also learned that they can also react to you shooting through a wall, that they don't actually have to see you. So what I would do is I would camp in a room, stay in a corner, or not in the corner, stay in the edge of the door. I would shoot, throw the weapon, and then as they come in, I will punch them and I will kill them all. Because there's a mask called Tony that it basically kills everybody in one hit. So that Tony's mask helped a lot, especially because you can get the mask at the level in the, I think it's the second or third chapter, if you did the right score. Which, funny enough, you really don't have to try so hard to get Tony. Like you need a certain score, but it's so easy to get the score that I never got worried about getting the Tony mask. I always got it. So a lot of the strats revolve around Tony and just making sure that, based on what I understood by the like with the AI, but there were sections on that game that it was brutal, dude. There, I think it was there's a chapter where there is basically you have it's a disco, and then the second level there's a part where there's two rooms. When you get exposed, like when you try to go forward to see if you can shoot an enemy, you're exposed to the left side of that room as well. So there was really no way for me to hide. I had to like choose when to peek and shoot because the other side will kill me if I tried that. When I found out that I could sort of like bring the enemies to me by shooting shooting towards them across like a wall, it made things a lot easier because I will enter that room and then I would stay in the entrance and I would shoot. The only scary part about that strat was that I had limited amount of weapons, and if all those weapons, like if the bullets were out, then I'm pretty much done. I had to go out and try to punch them, and they shoot you in frame one. The bullet is not hit scan, it's bullet travel, but the bullets travel pretty fast. So it's really hard to dodge, if anything. The further you are, the better, but the closer you are is pretty much hit scan. So that was crazy. And then the most crazy part was like the last few stages. There was a particular stage with a boss, which is basically the last part of the main character, the last stage for the main character. And I had no idea how I was going to do that fight because it basically is the boss, the mafia boss or whatever boss is. There's two cats in front, like I don't know if like tigers or whatever they are, and then you have the boss's right hand. And so the way it goes is you kill the two cats, and then you kill the right hand boss, and then the right hand man, and then you kill the boss. And so the problem was the cats. The cats, they run at you and they just bite you. There's no tell, there's nothing. As soon as they get close to you, you're dead. So that was really hard because you enter that room with nothing. You only use a trophy. You get a trophy from one of the chairs, and you just smack with the trophy. So I'm like, how the hell am I gonna kill them with just a trophy? And I learned that if I position myself in the corner in the right corner, I mean, this was me testing all the positions that I could get. If I stay in the right corner and then I basically I slash them at the correct time, that slash would like it's not gonna kill them because they die in two slashes, but that slash will stop them, and then they will go for a very predictable attack, and all I had to do was time the attack. So it was sort of like a pattern, or in a tempo. It was kind of like a pattern. So I'll just do that for the first cat and then for the next cat. And I didn't have to fight them both at the same time because since I was in the right corner, naturally one of them just falls behind the other one because one of them is closer to me. So I would just kill the first one and then kill the second one. And then from there, I would position myself in the center, let the right hand man, like his minion, come to me, throw the trophy, and then I will basically just cower in one of the corners and then just kill him there. So like it took me a long time to come up with that strat, but man, when I found that out, I was like so happy because one of the things I hate is just not having control of an outcome that late into a run. Because after that fight, it was like 3 stages left, and they were not that difficult except for the last one, which was another thing that I had to put a lot of time into. But yeah, once I figure out the boss in the last stage of the game, the only one that really was inconsistent was the police department. So once I figured that out, it was good. But that run in particular, I was not expecting to suffer as much as I did.
One run you've done is the world's first Remnants of the Ashes, of which the game developer studio, I believe, or at least the Twitter, the official Twitter for the Remnants, shouted the run out. Has there been any other experiences, or was that sort of, I guess, a surprise to wake up to or to see happen?
Yeah, my only surprise. I mean, the only moment that I had something like that. It was completely unexpected because I never reached out to the devs, but I was very vocal in Reddit because at that point I kind of realized that I was trying to understand Reddit because I was into like content creation, so I really wanted to like learn how to like understand all the other social media so I can bring out more people into my community. So I realized that people disliked heavily me posting videos, but they actually enjoyed me posting pictures. And so I would post pictures about my progress, which is another thing that I noticed they like. People like really being part of a journey or like a narrative. They like following a narrative. So I would often just post pictures about like, 4 hit PB, I'm struggling but still there, almost about to get to this boss, wish me luck and all that stuff. And then, that was kind of like building up to when I got the run. And so when I got the run, I posted the final boss picture with all the splits in green, and I was like, yeah, I finally did it, I got it, and that got a lot of upvotes and like a lot of upvotes, and the developers congratulated me there in the Reddit post, and they found I guess they just typed HeyBlasty on Twitch and they found out the vault and they posted the vault. Like I didn't even give them the vault. They just found me and found the vault and then just posted the vault. That's how it happened. So it was pretty fun. It was pretty cool. I didn't. It caught me completely off guard. I was really happy that they reached me out.
A sort of a tangent, but I was curious because I've not seen it before. It might be more well known than I'm aware of. But for a few runs, but the one I saw it on at least was the Celeste run, which is your controller, which is Hitbox. At least the visual on screen resembles,
Yes.
like, if people have in mind like an arcade machine and the circular buttons, and there's like several of those on screen. Could you describe, like, first of all, what it is and the why you use that for those runs, if not more, that I've not seen?
So the hitbox is basically it's just an arcade controller, but instead of having the stick that you see in the arcades, they just have 4 directional inputs, which are in red, and then the other buttons, which are in white. The hitbox that I own kind of mimics the PlayStation 4 controller. There's another one that mimics the GameCube controller, which has way more buttons, and the layout is kind of more of like a keyboard style layout where you got like the WAS and then the shift button next to it. So it's a bit more friendly for keyboard players. The idea of trying out the hitbox was that I've always been a fan of like approaching the multiple games or new games with a different controller. I kind of noticed that I'm pretty good at adapting. So I kind of like enjoy trying new controllers with different games. Like for example, Hollow Knight was with the GameCube controller. Katana Zero was with the Xbox. Minecraft was with the I forgot the name of it. It's basically a controller that you put you put your hand in it, and it's just like a hand controller. I use that, and so when I knew about the hitbox, I was interested because I didn't like using keyboard for platforming, but I really love tapping the keys. Like usually use keyboard for like my third person games like Dark Souls. I always play with mouse and keyboard on Dark Souls. So I would just like freaking like really mash the buttons like pretty hard. And that's the thing that people do with arcades. They just mash buttons. And I was like, huh, if I actually like, I really enjoy just mashing buttons on a keyboard, but I don't like it for platforming. I wonder if I might enjoy, using a hitbox. And I bought it and I fell in love with it. And so I think I got this before Celeste, I would say. And so when I decided to do Celeste, I decided to just use the hitbox, which was probably not the best idea because a lot of the hours that I put on Celeste back then when I used to play it a lot, it was with a GameCube controller, and so basically I had to learn everything from scratch with it because one of the things about the hitbox is that the out of the four red buttons that the hitbox have, the one in the lowest part is actually up. That's the input. It's to go up. So it's kind of intuitive when you think about it, that you have to press the button that is the lowest to go up when it should be down. And so that took me some time to get used to because I couldn't like do it without thinking. Like subconsciously, I couldn't really press the lowest button to just go up. So that took me some time to just get used to. But I fell in love with the controller. Honestly, I think it's a controller that I would use for every Metroidvania. I just the sound of it and when I tap it, how it feels. Honestly, I've been looking to buy another controller similar to this, but I would say like my curiosity for like doing attempting hitless with different controllers and just seeing like can I adapt to this with this controller is what pushed me to try the hitbox with Celeste. And after that, I've been using hitbox for other games like Toho Luna Nights. I did it with the hitbox as well.
I want to move into live streaming. I guess, unless it can't be taken away from it or separate from the challenge run aspect, what is it about live streaming that you enjoy?
Honestly, is hanging out with people. Live streaming is kind of like the virtual world of couch gaming. Is where couch gaming has gone to, and I've always been a big fan of couch gaming. I used to play with my friends and just hang out, and there's couch gaming had this sort of like, if anything, parallel play to it, where it's like you're probably not directly having fun with your friend. He's probably playing another game or on a handheld while you're playing on a console. But just having somebody there, like either witnessing or just being there with you, is kind of cool. So transitioning to streaming was basically the same. It was like couch gaming but virtually. And so, had people there. We could talk about a lot of stuff that related to hit list or challenge running, or just the act of sharing. It was something that I really enjoy, and doing no head runs helped me a lot because I'm not alone in this. I'm just doing it with them, and they kind of help me sort of like not think about when I reset. There's hard moments. It's kind of easier for me to just try again when I have people with them. So of course the community, but mainly just the couch gaming aspect of it. It's like I have a group of people just hanging out with me and chat, and they're just experiencing the same thing that I'm experiencing, or at least to some degree, right? They're not controlling the game, but they're kind of watching me do stuff, and we're just talking about stuff. And then if there's things that are going wrong, they can just kind of like brainstorm with me, and then we can figure things out and try to see like how can we fix a certain issue. And that was actually very true when I did Resident Evil 3. A moderator of the name Miley Ray Stewart, she's been with me for quite some time, and I basically tried or taught her everything I know, almost everything I know about Hitless, because there was a point that I kind of wanted her to be like this female figure that does Hitless, because I really like seeing women attempt like cool stuff. So I kind of wanted that from Miley back then. So I was telling her everything that I knew and here and there because I needed somebody that could think someone in the same venue as me that could just figure things out for me. And Resident Evil 3, there was a boss that I was like really having a hard time, and then she suggested me something, and that changed completely the fight. And I was like, "Oh wow, that's crazy. Okay, let's do this then." And if it wasn't for her, I probably wouldn't have not gotten to run in 7 days since routing. So that sort of like couch gaming and being able to like brainstorm with people is one of the things that I enjoy the most when streaming.
You're currently a member of Team Widers, which is a community of challenge runners, and you've participated in events. At least the event that I found was the Clan O'Connell speedrun, I believe. Is that right?
Yes, yeah, it was a speedrun.
Do you enjoy the event aspect? I'm sure you've been in some other ones. I just couldn't find as I was doing some prep. But event participation, do you enjoy that aspect?
Oh yeah, so just to like throw the information out there, I did participate in the Team Hitless event. I think you participated as well. I was commentating RE. But in regards to Clan Akano, I loved it. I was doing it. Initially I wanted to go for Hitless, but I couldn't get there. Clan Akano was something of a game that I was like looking forward to being done with. But when I did speedrun, I didn't thought I was actually going to fare well. I was just looking to just have fun and just give my all, and ended up winning the tournament. But before that, I was actually commentating, and one of the things that I enjoy a lot is commentating. I've been always being a big fan of commentating, and somebody I looked up to when it comes to like high tier commentating is IFC Yipes. I think he's probably like god tier commentator, and so I kind of wanted to provide that sort of quality to people when it comes to Hitless, because I think there's a couple aspects of Hitless that kind of needs a bit of attention to just have a core community and can glue people into the game. Like first, it's a narrative, and you also need people that they can kind of like look forward to seeing part of the narrative. It was not the case for Clan O'Connell, but that idea of like being that kind of commentator that kind of pushed that kind of sort of narrative was something that I kind of pushed me into accepting to commentate on Clan O'Connell, and I really enjoyed it. It was really fun to be able to interact with the developers, and then kind of change back and forth information, and like explain what the runners were doing. And it was a really fun experience. And yeah, when I would do it again and again and again, to be honest.
Along similar lines, is that the appeal of making guides for you? The be able to explain things that may not be immediately obvious even just by watching.
So making guys is pretty interesting, because I don't think the appeal was much of that when I started. It was more of like there was a spot that was not filled, and somebody needed to do it, and so I started doing it. And then I noticed that people really needed the help, and then from there I started like working on it on guides. So from there it did transition into being able to like sort of like explain people how everything worked in like commentary fashion, I would say. Well, not really commentary fashion, but in a similar fashion. And the feedback was phenomenal. I had really good feedback. And so that made me realize that people really needed guides. And after that, my goal was to make guides in a way that it was very easy to understand, and people can kind of like get into the mindset of doing bosses hitless. And I think one of my goals with the guides in Dark Souls games, especially Dark Souls 3, because I think this is the only one that I've done guides from. My goal was to kind of like what would be the word? Is it demystify, or like yeah, basically demystify the fact, or not the fact, that the idea that the Dark Souls is a hard game, which it is, but I think people were missing the point about the game. Miyazaki said himself that he didn't make the game hard for the sake of being hard. He could have made it hard for the sake of being hard if he wanted to. But one of the things that I really liked about Dark Souls 3 was that the game itself was trying to teach you something. The difference between player was whether you were willing to learn or not. And so I think people couldn't grasp that idea. So my goal for guides was to be able to like teach them the way of like learning a boss. So the thing I would do is I will give them all the move sets of a boss, so they can kind of get themselves acquaintance with how the boss functions, instead of like giving them a strat of like, yeah, just use this weapon and buff like this, and then when phase 2 comes in, just wail on it and done. I kind of wanted to provide enough information for them to say like this, not to give them the fish, but to learn how to fish. So I really wanted them to like be able to like when they were done with the guide to be able to transition to another boss and go like, oh, I know how to do this now, or like I know how to approach this, right? So yeah, it was to like bring light to the idea of like the game is hard, yes, but it's much harder because you're not looking to learn, right? Like the Dark Souls is a game that if you take the time to learn, it's not a game that is meant to be done quickly. It's a game that takes time to learn and to just get used to. So if you take your time to just, go little by little, you can start even a Gundyr and just try to understand how Gundy works and learn from him. Your experience will go pretty high up. You'll get better skill wise at the game as opposed to just mashing the button and hoping that you beat the boss. So in guides, I wanted to do that. There were people that didn't like the idea of like, yeah, you just giving me too much information. Just want to know how to beat this boss. That didn't make me change because I knew there was a lot more people saying that like, oh, I struggled with this boss for 15 hours, or it took me 15 tries to beat this boss, and after watching it run, I just got it first try. Like I've gotten so many comments of people just saying, "I just got this boss first try after seeing your video." That made me like under like that was a confirmation of for me that I was doing the right thing. Like I was not teaching them how to do a certain strat. I was teaching them how to learn the boss and how to like fight the boss correctly, so that if they try it again later on, then they'll feel like it's not as hard as I thought it would be, that kind of thing. And on the later guides, I actually started incorporating in the description. If you go to the description, you'll see that there's like references of 4 videos with different weapons, each of me doing the boss hit list. They will go like, yeah, but how do you do this with Greatstar? And I go like, just look at this video. It's like, see how I did Frida, or see how I did Watchers, and so on and so forth. So my job as providing guys was much more than just give them a quick fix. It was more of like setting them in the right path to like be able to be like independent in their journey of just achieving, finishing the game, because it's like finishing the game it means a lot for a lot of people. I know people who have commented that like I never thought this was possible, and I did it. And I get that in the nameless not nameless, in the Cinder video, which is like a very important video to me. It's like very dear to me. But that video, I've had people just say like, I never thought I could do this, and I did it. Thanks for the tutorial. So yeah.
In a sense, it's instead of teaching how to do a boss, it's teaching to understand how the boss works, and from that you can then learn to do the boss because you know how it works.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, yeah. My goal simply was to like help people understand how to go about playing Dark Souls through boss fight. It was like, don't look for like a one trick pony. Just take the time to learn. And people will go like, hey, I need help, and I will just casually go like, yeah, just show me the video and I tell you what you're doing wrong, right? I'm not gonna give you any sort of a P strat or anything. Not that I knew many, but there were some that I knew that you could finish fights pretty quickly. But I would just tell them, hey, just show me a video, show me a recording, and I will point out where you're doing wrong and what you can do right. And usually when people bring the video, I kind of try to touch into the mindset of like fighting the boss, because I think that's the number one thing that makes them lose fights a lot. And mainly is just they just want to mash buttons, and I tell them, hey, learn the moveset and then understand when can you attack. Don't attack whenever you want to, because you're just asking to get hurt. So like be mindful of like what you're gonna do, right? Every single action that you take, every decision that you make kind of counts in the fight. So don't attack out of nowhere. React to the boss. Punish the boss. It's better to punish than just act without any sort of an idea of like if it's gonna come out well or not. So I would try to like kind of touch on the mindset a little bit more than anything else, because a lot of the time this is just really a bad habit or bad mindset of like how to fight a boss. That most of the people can just do it. It's just they don't understand how to. So that's I would touch on that more in depth whenever they couldn't beat the boss.
My final query before we go into some quick questions is, with doing so many runs, do nerves still play a role, or do nerves still affect you?
I think that nerfs will always affect me, but not as much as it used to. There's back then I had an issue with nerves, and there's a runner that I probably won't be able to mention his name because I probably doesn't want to. But there's a runner who's a really 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 good runner that maybe not many people know about. He does mainly low damage runs, And there was one time that I was talking to him about nerves, and because that was a subject that I kind of wanted to touch on with other runners to see like what were their takes on it. And he said he rarely get nervous. Like he gets nervous, but not like not too much. And it was the idea of like really not caring in a way. And I was like, oh, interesting, huh? And so I try to like set a mindset where I don't care, but not really. It's more of like I'm okay with not getting the run, right? I think like that's one of the things that helped me a lot lose diminish the amount of nerves that I could get or minimize the amount of nerves that I would have on a given run. It's just understanding that if I get hit, I can just try him tomorrow, and I don't have to worry about it as much. Nowadays it's not as it's I still get more nervous than normal, but it's because I'm shooting for this goal, and we only have 1 month left, so it's kind of scary when the runs don't go your way, especially Resident Evil 4. God damn it! But yeah, I've learned to just not really put too much attention in caring. The other thing is that I kind of like juggle between games. Like I don't do just one run. I've done 4 runs at the same time. And the idea of like if I just don't get this run, I can just turn it off, put the other run, and just start working on the other run is kind of like helped me a lot. It was like, okay, yeah, if I get hit, I'll just try tomorrow. I'll just work on these other runs. And so the juggle, the whole thing of like me juggling between games also helped me with that. Because honestly, sometimes for me, time is not like big of a factor unless I'm trying harding. And I fully understand that when I go for a run, I understand that I can get the run at any point. So it doesn't become a matter of like, can I get the run? It's like when. So I can choose to try hard and get it faster, or I can just, chill, enjoy myself, be okay with getting hit, and I'll take it later. I'll get the run later. So that has helped me a lot with just you know fear and stuff. That said, though, you always get nervous. You always feel like your heart is pumping like really fast. But I've managed to control the being nervous, and that has helped me a lot with my runs. Because usually when you get pretty nervous at the end of a run, it's kind of hard to like perform the way you want to because there's the nerves are in there, it's kicking in, so you don't have as much control as you kind of want to. There's also the fear of like I do not want to get hit. It's like I'm so close, I don't want to get hit. So all of that kind of factors in, and kind of like your potential, not your potential, but the your normal self when you're just practicing is not there. It's a bit less. So I've been working on that a lot, and I've gotten way better since from like if we think about Dark Souls 2 to now, I've gotten a lot better at that.
If you could give one piece of advice for a new no hit runner, what advice would it be?
I would say embrace failure. I would say I think failure is one of the things that keep runners from even attempting a run. Failure is a reason why sometimes you kind of delay your runs because of that. Like you're afraid of failing. You don't want to fail. You don't want to accept when you fail. And I think failure is probably like the one of the catalysts for getting runs, and it has been for me. Just I've been I wouldn't say like all my life, but I've been kind of a failure way before no head runs. Like there's been a lot of things that I've attempted in my life that I sucked at. I tried parkour, I tried skateboarding, I tried basketball. I wasn't too high enough. Yu-Gi-Oh! I tried to attend tournaments. I was pretty bad at a lot of stuff, and I tried like for example skating. I would wake up every morning and I would jump over a bucket for 30 minutes straight just so I can get an ollie. Like I could perfect an ollie, and then after that, I just couldn't land an ollie well. So, I put time. I had discipline. So I'm not a stranger to failure. So when I learned to embrace failure, it helped me a lot with runs because it just tells you what you're doing wrong, it's if you know what you're doing wrong, then you'll know not to do it. So it doesn't apply to everything. Like I said, failure didn't help me a lot with skateboarding, but it definitely has helped me a lot with no hit running. On top of that, the thing about embracing failure is that if you can't do the run, it's okay to walk away. When I did Dark Souls 2, I was okay with walking away. It's like, yeah, it's my first game. If I don't get it, it's fine. It's like I have zero expectations of me. I'm okay with walking away if this run doesn't work out. And I've done it with every single run. But that's why I come to Code Vein from time to time. I haven't touched Shovel Knight because of that. It's not that I'm not good enough. It just takes more time. And not choosing to continue is kind of like a fake. kind of like a fail. It's like I failed to just do the run from the start, from the get go. So I'm okay with failing. I'm okay with admitting that I failed. Like, you know, it's important to understand your strengths and weaknesses because that way it helps you shape off your path.
If one game could be released tomorrow, either an announced, unannounced, or a sequel to a game you don't think will ever exist, what game would it be?
I think Mega Man Battle Network 7. It stopped at 6 is the first they were done. I always thought that the game that the franchise of that had the potential to compete with Pokemon. It was a game that probably was not as friendly to get into as Pokemon, but man, it had like really cool mechanics. People who play Battle Network in the back in the day, they know like it was a really good game and it had like really good stuff going on. It's just that it's like like it was branching off from the original Mega Man, which is a platformer. So it probably wasn't the game that the franchise they kind of want to put it a lot more effort into it. But I feel like there was an opportunity missed there. But I would say yeah, Mega Man Battle Network 7. I would definitely not hit that game if it comes out.
Related to the mental aspect of doing challenge runs, if there was a time, could you tell me about when a run was taking its toll and how you got past it?
So I would say there's kind of two games. Celeste was basically, if you're asking me like what was the game that I got the most emotional was Celeste. Celeste is the only game that I cried, to be honest. Is and I actually had to mute myself on stream because I was crying. But I was crying because I was nervous because the nerves kicked in and I was like, oh man, here comes the nerves again. Same old. Hello, my old friend. So it was just like I couldn't control it, and I know that when you're nervous, you can't perform well, and especially on a game like Celeste, where it's like platforming, you gotta be not super precise, but very close to precise. That scared me a lot, and it it was the Celeste was definitely a struggle because I went pretty hard on the game on November last year. I had a goal of doing. I had two goals. One was 12 games before December, the end of December, and then was a 12 out of 12, which is basically the same thing, but the other one had a bit more a bigger window to just mess up. Like the 12 out of 12 ended on the I think the first or second week of January while the 12 runs out of December ended up in December. So I really wanted to get the 12 runs before the end of December. So at that point, it was in November was Celeste month, and I grind that game so hard, and I got to one PB. I think like early or mid December. At that point, I was juggling between three games. I was doing the Pathless, Celeste, and Sekiro, and those were the last three games that I needed to complete before the end of December, and I was stuck at PB hell with Celeste for the remainder of December. I managed to get the Pathless, I managed to get Sekiro, but I couldn't for the love of me get Celeste. And last run, I got pretty far in, and then I got hit, and it was over. I entered January, and I was already like really burned out from the game because I play so much. I pushed that game so hard that there was one comment from a speedrunner that I was talking to. It was like, imagine that it takes you like 8 months to get this run, and then I was laughing, but after a while, that thought kind of creeped in, and I was like, oh damn, imagine if this is the run that I just take so long. Because I've heard of many runners who they just have runs that takes them like 8 months, 9 months, like a full year, and I was like, damn, what if Celeste is just that run that I just won't be able to get through until like many months pass. And so from there, I was like, I started getting burned down. I was like, yeah, I'm not gonna touch Celeste for a little bit. And one of my viewers went to my Discord and said, Blasty, you haven't touched this game in quite some time. And this was February, getting into February. He said, I will unfollow, I will stop talking to you if you don't get this run by this time. And he had a website where it showed the timer and everything. So I had like I think it was like till the like mid-February or something like that. And I have a photo. I just haven't been able to find it, but I have a photo where it shows him saying that, and I go like, but like that's very little time. And then there's another a viewer of mine saying, well, you better get working onto it. And he just kicked W's. I think it was or lose or whatever. And I was like, damn it. And so I started working again. I mean, I knew that like he wasn't super serious about it, but that definitely pushed me. And I was like, okay, I'll start working on it. And then the day before, I decided to start doing runs again on Celeste on stream, I started. I decided to practice. I was like, okay, it's been quite some time. Let me see how I feel about this run. And funny enough, I got the run off stream. That practice. I was de-rusting after not playing the game for quite some time, and I got the run. For me, it was like a movie. It was like I was wowed. I was like, am I really getting this run? Like you could see the run, and you'll see like me like getting like being amazed of like, whoa, I'm actually this far in. No way, dude. And then I got to the last flag, and I was like, oh, this is crazy. And then I pogged, I freaking popped off. I haven't popped off as much as I did for a long time. Because I think there's only 3 games that I really popped off. Usually when I just beat a game, I just go, I say no hit run activated, but it's just more of like a scripted thing that I do. But sometimes I just don't really react much of it, and I think it's mainly because I just know that it's possible at that point, or like everything makes sense, and I just need to perform. So nothing wow out of that. But yeah, like Dark Souls 2, Resident Evil 2 were the games that I popped off, and after that I stopped popping off. And then Celeste, when I did Celeste, after like more than a year, is when I popped off again. I was like, damn, this game was something. And it's because all the games that I'd done previous, there was always a strat. There was always a way for me to execute. I had everything planned out. If things didn't work, I will find a better strat, and things will work out. Celeste was that one game where I realized that strategizing was not everything. There's also skill. And I'm like, shit, okay, so I lacked skill, and I needed to I had my strengths were like being able to like route stuff and do well. Like my skill was not the greatest, was enough to like get me the runs on many other stuff, but it was not enough for Celeste at that point. So like I realized like yeah, I do like there's games that just plain old require skill. You just need to be really skillful at the game. Like like for example, Remnant from the Ashes was kind of one of them. Like you need a good mechanical skill, but I think more importantly than that, you really need to be good at shooting. Not completely necessary, but the better you are at shooting, the easier it becomes because the rifle just one shots almost everything. So you just need to make sure to clear your enemies. So I was good at that, but Celeste required a set of skills that I did not have, and that kind of scared me because I was like, damn, will I ever get the necessary skills for Celeste? So yeah, and look at that. All I needed was rest, to be honest. Which is the one thing, which is funny because I always talk about how important rest is the one thing that I completely dismissed out of Celeste. Because this is something that I knew back then when I was a musician. I used to practice my bass like 5 hours a day. I even practiced 10 hours a day. Like I had a pretty big schedule. I would do that, and there was a point that I just couldn't move on, and I struggled just getting better, and I was really sad and depressed and whatever. And then after a week passed, I came back and I was like 2 to 3 times better than I was before, and I was like, oh man, so this is the power of resting. And so I remember that from that long ago, and I applied it to my runs. But Celeste was the one game I didn't apply it to. And so when I took a break on January and I came back to February, it was like, oh my god, dude, I'm like way better. It's like the feather sections were like that were pretty hard, which was the main part of like that I really sucked at. I was doing really good because like feather sections with hitbox is hard. It's better with a joystick. So it's, yeah. I think that one, yeah.
And my final query is, what's in the future plans of HeyBlasty?
The future plans of Blasty, I need to get 30 runs before the end of December. I'm sitting at 23. Resident Evil 4 I'm a 4-hit PB. I'm supposed to be done with it on November, and we're behind dates, so I want to do that. And then next year, I definitely wanna. I'm probably gonna lay low a little bit more on the Hitless side. I want to focus more on the community and try to promote Hitless on top of like content creation on YouTube. Like I know everybody's been talking about Elden Ring, so that's a game that I'm going to touch on in the future as well. And I kind of want to get into the content creation side of Elden Ring. I kind of want to. I think it's a game that, if it's well done, is gonna be there for the long run, and I kind of want to cement myself in there because I haven't had like a main game that I'm known for. So definitely having a main game helps, where you can just go back into, which is not the greatest thing because I'm not a big fan of like sticking to one game. I tend to like just do run and then move on to the next game. I kind of get tired of the same game over and over. So I hope Elden Ring becomes that one game that I just feel comfortable staying with. So yeah.
And if people wanted to check you out, where would they be looking?
They can find me at HeyBlasty on Twitch and YouTube, and then HBlastyX on Twitter. I also have a TikTok, funny enough. So I'll be working on TikTok as well in the future. So it's you can find me there too.
Sweet. Well, Blasty, I appreciate the time, man. I hope you've enjoyed this conversation. I think it's been a really interesting one today, going through strategizing and all fun stuff like that, which I really enjoy going into.
Yeah, dude, same. I really like this a lot. I don't, like I said, I don't get to talk to just geek out about Hitless with everybody. So it's quite this is like quite a treat for me.
It's no worries at all. And I hope everyone listening has enjoyed also. Hope everyone has a great remainder of their day, morning, or evening, depending on your time zone. And I shall catch you in the next episode. If you enjoy this and want to hear more with amazing guests, be sure to head over to youtube.com/WayOfLoci, Loki spelled with a C, or wayofloki.com/nohitpodcast.